Welcome to Taxpayer Empowerment. I'm Jose Melendez, Campaign Director for the Taxpayer Protection Project here at TPPF. Today we're turning our attention to Austin and one of the measures on the November ballot, Proposition Q. Prop Q has sparked much conversation about how we govern our growing city and how voters can have a direct say in shaping local priorities. To help us better understand the proposal and the details around it, I'm joined by Matt Mackowiak, co-founder of Save Austin Now and longtime advocate for accountability in city government. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jose. Great to be here.
So before we get into the details of our conversation today, I hear that you have a baby boy on the way.
We do. 6 weeks away, December 4th. Amy and I are expecting our first child. We're really excited. It's a thrilling, wonderful, scary, remarkable experience to get to this point, but we can't wait.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. Also, in thinking about that, some of the fiscal decisions that we make as a city are going to affect those future generations. So on that note, what motivated you to get involved on, the fiscal affairs of the city of Austin, and how does that fit into the broader kind of agenda of your organization?
Yeah, so our organization, Save Austin Now, is a nonpartisan political action committee, nonpartisan PAC. We have a Republican, myself, and then a Democrat named Stephen Brown who co-chair it. And we have not endorsed a partisan figure in any race. We don't engage in national issues. We engage only in local, what we consider nonpartisan issues. Save Austin Now started in 2019 after the city of Austin passed the homeless camping ordinance, lifting the homeless camping ban, which had been in place for 17 years, had been very successful. It didn't solve the problem of homelessness, but it severely limited it in a way that was working. Our city took that disastrous step, much like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle, many other cities had as well. So that led to a 2-year fight. We had to collect 25,000 petitions twice, got it on the ballot, and passed Prop B at that time to reinstate the camping ban. And our focus at Save Austin Now has always been to improve standard of living for the largest number of citizens in Austin possible. And so we do that by focusing on issues in a number of different categories. Public safety has always been our number one area, but certainly affordability and transparency and accountability is another. And that's where Prop Q comes in. Our council decided to not do the job that we pay them to do by balancing our budget as cities are required, and instead wanted to increase the burden on taxpayers. And that's what they're proposing with Prop Q. And it's not just unjustified, it's a morally bankrupt notion that they've put forward. And that's why you've seen just an unbelievable, broad, bipartisan coalition of people come together to oppose it.
On that note, let's get right into it. I think the audience really wants to know, what is Prop Q? And for a moment, take as much time as you need, walk us through this proposition and how it's going to affect the city of Austin.
Yeah, so the American Recovery Act, the so-called ARPA bill at the federal level under the Biden administration, provided considerable funding to cities during COVID. And so almost every major city in America right-sized their budget after that money was spent. Austin hasn't done that. Austin's budget on a per capita basis is anywhere between 30 and 40% larger than Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. The reason that the city put forward Prop Q, which is a 20.2% property tax increase at the city level for every resident that lives in the city of Austin and every business owner in the city of Austin, was to close a $33 million budget deficit. Put that in context, that's about half of 1%. They could have closed that budget deficit themselves by finding efficiencies, by eliminating waste and fraud and duplication, by demanding programs be efficient. They refused to do that. And so instead, they proposed Prop Q. Now, Prop Q doesn't raise $33 million. It raises $110 million. It's 3 times the size that they need to close the budget deficit. Our mayor, Kirk Watson, said recently that almost half, $50 million of the $110 million that Prop Q produces, if it passes, will go to homelessness. Our city has spent more than $300 million on homelessness since 2019. We do not measure outcomes. We measure heads in beds. We don't measure whether someone is working, whether someone is saving money, whether their children are in school, whether they're sober, whether they're on their mental health treatment plan. It is insane for a city to continue to double down on the approach that we've been taking on homelessness without having done an independent audit of our homeless spending. Our city's never done that. That's been a demand Save Austin Now's had for 5 years, and we continue to make. And I think if Prop Q fails, we're going to be in a position to talk very seriously about auditing homeless spending. We all want our homeless to be treated with compassion, but we also want them to get back on a pathway to self-reliance and self-sufficiency. You don't do that by enabling the behaviors that put them in that position to begin with. Roughly 3/4 of our homeless are drug or alcohol addicted, and roughly 70% have mental health challenges, and there's tremendous overlap. If you're not attacking those two issues directly, you're not helping the homeless. So just backing up for a second, this property tax increase that's been proposed that will pass on November 4th unless citizens rise up and vote no on Prop Q at the bottom of the ballot will directly affect every homeowner, but not just homeowners. It will directly affect every single business owner in the city of Austin. And that could be a mom and pop coffee stand, or it could be the largest employers in our city, everything in between. And commercial property owners are taxed not just on the value of their property, they're taxed on the value of their equipment as well. I was talking to a medical provider at a recent event who made sure I understood that from their perspective. I was shocked when I fully focused on that. But it also is going to be visited upon renters. And while it may not be as direct as it would be for homeowners, you can be sure that building owners are going to pass those property tax increases onto their renters, because they're getting nothing for that property tax increase, right? There's no such thing as a free lunch. So it's bad for homeowners, it's bad for business owners, it's bad for renters, and it is a tax increase that lives forever. It is not a one-year tax increase. It is 20.2% increase in perpetuity, and you can be sure this city will never cut property taxes. I'm not aware of a time when they ever have. And the last point I'll just make here to answer your question here is, my guess is many of your viewers have very little confidence in the Austin American-Statesman, rightly so. I'm not aware of a time the Austin American-Statesman has ever endorsed against a tax election in any jurisdiction in its area, reader area. It did endorse against Prop Q. And it's an editorial that's worth reading. While it does point out that many of the areas that the funding would go to if it passes are things we would like to do, the question becomes, is the tax burden that Austinites are facing now reasonable? And is it reasonable to ask people to pay more? You simply do not make affordability better by raising taxes. It's astounding that you even have to say that. But that is really the central question before voters as it relates to Prop Q.
Excellent. And so finally, no matter what taxpayers decide, Prop Q has already prompted a larger conversation about how our city is growing and our spending priorities. So what do you think, or what do you hope is the outcome of this public discourse?
That is a great question. And, as we sit here, we've got 15 or 14 days left, so I'm super focused just on this election. That said, public safety is fully funded in the base budget. Our police and fire are fully funded. They are not going to be able to take a slice out of police and fire, and we established that before we got involved in this. I'm not going to do anything that makes public safety worse in our city, period. What this is going to do is it's going to require the council to go back and close that $33 billion budget deficit, which shouldn't be that hard. I can think of two things just off the top of my head that would close 1/3 of the budget had they been serious in the first place. You had $1 million wasted on our city logo, right? Could have been done through a logo contest or a site like Fiverr where you can get easy subcontract vendors to do things. But second is they're wasting something like $10 million on art from New York City at the Austin airport. That's $11 million of the $33 million budget. And that took almost no work to identify those two deeply unserious things. It's time for our council to be fiscally responsible, to make the hard choices, to prioritize spending. Yes, we'd love to do everything, but why don't we focus on core services, delivering them efficiently, effectively, transparently, with accountability? You do those core things, taxpayers are going to be willing to consider you doing other things and supporting them. But if you're not doing those core things well, taxpayers have a right to be irate. In this case, they are. If you look at Austin Energy, if you look at Austin Water, the constant problems we have at the airport, the fact we're well behind on Project Connect, which the voters passed, which has changed many times. The list goes on and on and on. I think most taxpayers don't feel like their tax dollars in Austin are being spent respectfully and effectively right now. And so there's absolutely no justification for increasing property taxes at this time. And that's why I believe Prop Q will be defeated.
Excellent. Matt, thanks so much for joining the show today. And thank you for shining a spotlight on a very important local issue.
Thank you.
Until next time, I'm Jose Melendez reminding you it's your money, your government, and your voice.